every morning far more interested than any member of the fair sex could be in a street of hat shops. As I say, ships from all over the world put in at Las Palmas. Sometimes they stayed a few hours, sometimes a day or two. In the principal hotel there, the Metropole, you'll see people of all races and nationalities. Birds of passage. Even the people going to Tenerife usually come here and stay a few days before crossing to the other island. My story begins there, in the Metropole Hotel, one Thursday evening in January. There was a dance going on, and I and my friend had been sitting at a small table watching the scene. There were a fair sprinkling of English and other nationalities, but the majority of the dancers were Spanish. And when the orchestra struck up a tango, only half a dozen couples of the latter nationality took the floor. They all danced well, and we looked on and admired. One woman in particular excited our lively admiration. Tall, beautiful, and sinuous, she moved with the grace of a half-tamed leopardess. There was something dangerous about her. I said as much to my friend, and he agreed. "Women like that," he said, "are bound to have a history. Life will not pass them by." "Beauty is perhaps a dangerous possession," I said. "Not only beauty," he insisted, "there's something else. Now look at her again. Things are bound to happen to that woman, or because of her. As I said, life will not pass her by. Strange and exciting events will surround her. You've only got to look at her to know it." He paused, and then added with a smile, "Just as you've only got to look at those two women over there and to know nothing out of the way could ever happen to either of them. They're made for a safe and uneventful existence." I followed his eyes. The two women he referred to were travellers who had just arrived. A Holland Lloyd boat had put into port that evening, and the passengers were just beginning to arrive. As I looked at them, I saw at once what my friend meant. They were two English ladies, the thoroughly nice travelling English that you do find abroad. Their ages, I should say, were round about 40. One was fair and a little, just a little, too plump. The other was dark and a little, again, just a little, inclined to scragginess. They were what is called well-preserved, quietly and inconspicuously dressed in well-cut tweeds, and innocent of any kind of make-up. They had that air of quiet assurance which is the birthright of well-bred Englishwomen. There was nothing remarkable about either of them. They were like thousands of their sisters. They would doubtless see what they wished to see, assisted by Baedeker, and be blind to everything else. They would use the English library and attend the English church in any place they happened to be, and it was quite likely that one or both of them sketched a little. And as my friend said, nothing exciting or remarkable would ever happen to either of them, though they might quite likely travel half over the world. I looked from them back to our sinuous Spanish woman, with her half-closed, smouldering eyes, and I smiled. "Poor thing," said Jane Hellyer with a sigh, "but I do think it's so silly of people not to make the most of themselves. That woman in Bond Street, Valentine, is really wonderful. Audrey Denman goes to her. Have you seen her in The Downward Step? As a schoolgirl in the first act, she's really marvellous. And yet Audrey is 50 if she's a day, and as a matter of fact, I happen to know she's really nearer 60. "Go on," said Mrs. Bantry to Dr. Lloyd. "I love stories about sinuous Spanish dancers. It makes me forget how old and fat I am." "I'm sorry," said Dr. Lloyd apologetically, "but you see, as a matter of fact, this story isn't about the Spanish woman." "Isn't?" "No. As it happens, my friend and I were wrong. Nothing in the least exciting happened to the Spanish beauty. She married a clerk in a shipping office, and by the time I left the island she had 5 children and was getting very fat." "Just like that girl of Israel Peters," commented Miss Marple, "the one who went on the stage and had such good legs that they made her principal boy in the pantomime. Everyone said she'd come to no good, but she married a commercial traveller and settled down splendidly." "The village parallel," murmured Sir Henry softly. "No," went on the doctor, "my story is about the 2 English ladies." "Something happened to them," breathed Miss Hellyer. "Something happened to them, and the very next day, too." "Yes," said Mrs. Bantry encouragingly.